Next stop everywhere.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS, ready to talk some Doctor Who, hoping to lift everyone's spirits today. And, of course, I'm joined by my wonderful partner in time, fellow co-host, and just wonderful friend, Jesse Jackson. How you doing, Jesse?
I am so ready to talk Doctor Who. We're recording this on November 4th, the day after
2020.
Everyone voted, and so there's a lot of stuff that is up for debate. There's a lot of uncertainty, but you know what isn't uncertain? How great of a co-host we have in today's episode.
Where? Who? What? All right. So, yes, thankfully,
our guest companion.
Our special guest companion, of course, yes. So joining us, thankfully, to deal with, basically keep us from going out of control, is our wonderful friend and occasional special guest companion. So please welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, Holly Mack. How you doing, Holly?
Hello. Doing good.
So you even got some applause today.
If you love her emails, you will love her special companion appearances.
And sending good vibes out to Zan.
Exactly.
Yes,
yeah. So
indeed.
unfortunately, Zan was scheduled to join us to talk here at episode 207. We're going to talk Dragonfire, of course. Now, I had invited Zan because, hey, Dragonfire is Ace's first ever story, her debut on Doctor Who. So I knew Holly obviously was one that requested to talk about this, but then I also mentioned, well, Zan is such a huge Ace fan. I thought she might like to join us, so Holly was cool with that, and we reached out to Zan, but unfortunately Zan is feeling a little under the weather today. So obviously our thoughts are with Zan. Hopefully she'll be doing better. Sounds like she's having a rough go of it. I'm a little disappointed, but that's okay, because hopefully she'll be on the mend tomorrow, and maybe I can talk to her on Ghostwood. So, but I'm kind of sad because, it would have been great to get her thoughts on this, but that's okay. We can do 3 people, not a problem. Certainly in our wheelhouse, I would have to say. And if nothing else, we probably saved a half an hour of podcast recording time because Zan and I are not on the same podcast.
There you go.
So you guys win. All right. Like I said, we're going to talk here at episode 207. We're talking Dragonfire, which is a very fun episode. And because of that, I think it's an episode we all need right now. A nice, lighthearted adventure, a bit silly, a bit goofy, from the Sylvester McCoy era. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. So, Holly, since you're our special guest once again, what was it about this story that made you want to discuss it?
Well, number 1, Ace, and then 2, the return of Sabalom Glitz.
Oh, you like Glitz?
Seeing him in the trial of the Time Lord, just the snarky humor. I'm going to get myself into trouble, try to con my way out of it, promise I'm going to change my ways and still keep doing what I shouldn't be doing. So that's why I wanted to do this.
Okay, well, it's kind of interesting and we're obviously going to talk about Glitz in one of our topics today, definitely. But he's kind of, looking back now, it's almost like Sabalom Glitz was the Captain Jack of his day. Back in the classic era, the intergalactic con man. Although, obviously, not with near the amount of charm that John Barrowman has. So, how about you, Jesse?
I thought of more as Harry Muddish, from Star Trek, a little Harry Muddish.
That's a fair comparison.
And
Yeah.
I really liked, it was a likable character the same way that Harry Mudd's likable. So yeah, that was a really nice. And I really liked seeing Ace's origin story. As we get to this, we'll talk more about it. But this really is a fun kind of. This is just a really lighthearted but entertaining, kind of just a fun Doctor Who episode.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to share that with you, Jesse, is because this is Ace's debut, and she was one of the more popular companions of the classic era, played, of course, by the great Sophie Aldred, and, certainly one of my personal favorite companions. So even though, maybe the story isn't quite the best story ever, it's still a fun story, and it's a very fun debut for Ace, who obviously we get to learn a little bit more of as the episodes wear on in time. But I'm looking forward to getting everybody's thoughts about this. So, of course, this story, Dragonfire, written by Ian Briggs, who wrote The Curse of Fenric, which is generally regarded to be, by most fans, the favorite, along with probably Remembrance of the Daleks, the best of the Sylvester McCoy era. That's obviously arguable, but I think a lot of fans kind of highly regard Curse of Fenric. And this one was directed by Chris Clow, who directed the previous story, The Ultimate Foe, which featured Sabalom Glitz, and also directed some other episodes, including The Happiness Patrol and Silver Nemesis, the 25th anniversary story, which we have yet to talk about here on the podcast. So that's 3 stories we still need to talk about here. So plenty of stories, plenty of Doctor Who left to talk about. This was the 4th serial of season 24, 1987, starring, of course, Sylvester McCoy as the 7th Doctor, Bonnie Langford in her impressive lungs when it comes to screaming as Melanie Mel Bush in her final story, and Sophie Aldred, of course, as Dorothy Ace McShane, making her debut. Guest cast this time. Holly, you already mentioned Sabalom Glitz, so let's talk about Tony Selby a little bit. He was in the previous story. He was introduced in The Mysterious Planet, the very first story arc in Trial of the Time Lord, season 23, Colin Baker's final season. And he turned up again at the end of the season in The Ultimate Foe, reprising Glitz. And notably, Jesse might find this very interesting, he was actually in the original Christopher Reeve Superman movie from 1978 as one of the hoods during the bank robbers who escape on a boat and head out to sea.
Sure.
Or head out into Lake Metropolis or whatever it was. And if you're looking for him, he's the one hood who's counting the money, flipping through the dollar bills before Superman shows up to stop them. So keep your eyes out. You might want to go back right now. Well, at least after you listen to our podcast, right?
No, I can't stop right now. We have to talk about the episode.
Yeah, we do have to talk about the episode, but you know you're going to have to want to go back and see Glitz for that brief 3 seconds of screen time in Superman the movie. All right, we had Edward Peel as Kane, Patricia Quinn as Balaj, and she actually turned up in another Sylvester McCoy story, but this time for Big Finish Audio. She played Queen Angvia in the Big Finish Audio Bang Bang a Boom.
Okay.
I've never heard that one, but...
Interesting.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah. It's like American Idol or America Has Talent in Space.
Yeah, I think it was kind of like a Doctor Who version of the Eurovision Song Contest, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, kind of like a talent show type setting, right?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that one, Holly?
I did. I did. I enjoyed it.
Okay. And she also, most notably for a lot of older fans like yours truly, older geeks at least, she played Magenta in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, the movie.
That's a significant credit.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's do the time warp again because, hey, we're on Doctor Who, right? And she was also in the movie Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. So I thought that was pretty cool. Had to mention that. We had Tony Asoba as Krakauer, her fellow disgruntled co-worker working for Kane. And he was in a Tom Baker story, Destiny of the Daleks, as Lan. And then he turned up decades later in the Peter Capaldi era as Duke in Kill the Moon. So he's got a 4-7-12 connection if you're counting doctors for him.
In the bingo card,
In
right?
the bingo card, exactly, yes. The Doctor Who bingo card. Sharon Taylor played Stellar's mother, the young girl with the ringlets and the very cute dimples and just looking very much like a outer space Shirley Temple.
Yes.
She played Stellar's mother, and she was in a previous story from the Tom Baker era where she played Pat in The Stones of Blood.
Stellar's mom from, like, American Pie?
No. Stellar.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Stellar, as in relating to the stars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not Stifler's mom. Okay,
No,
got it.
Stellar.
Yeah. Wrong mom.
Exactly. Slightly, yeah. Miranda Borman played, by the way, Stellar, although obviously she doesn't have any other credits. So just thought I'd mention those as guest cast this week. Trivia. There's a lot of trivia in this one. Holly, did you happen to note any trivia before I get into my little ramble of little trivia tidbits?
I didn't get any trivia this time around.
Okay, just curious. So, for anybody wondering about that really weird cliffhanger at the end of episode 1, where Sylvester McCoy goes over the side of a railing to scale down, to go down to the lower level in the ice caverns. And there's no ladder there or anything. So what he does, he kind of puts his umbrella, hooks it on to the railing, and then starts sliding down and then hangs there in a literal cliffhanger for the episode. And if for anybody wondering why that happened, why he was doing this, because obviously it does. Obviously, if you've never, just watching the story for the first time like Jesse, you're probably very confused by that, I'm guessing. So the reason that he lowered himself on his umbrella for no apparent reason obviously got a lot of criticism over the years. And originally, as it was scripted, the Doctor actually did have a reason for doing this. According to script editor at the time, Andrew Cartmel, the passage leading to the cliff was supposed to be a dead end. So the only way that the Doctor basically had no other option but to scale down the cliff face. But because the way it was shot, that reason wasn't clear. So it's basically a failure on the part of director Chris Clow, not making that storytelling aspect or that important plot point clear, because otherwise, as noted, it's very confusing cliffhanger. And this is, this original intention was kind of reinforced because in the very next episode, Mel and Ace contemplate the same climb. But again, we don't have an explanation for why they're doing this. Kane, if you're wondering, was named, yes, after Citizen Kane.
Okay.
With Zana, his apparently dead girlfriend, wife, whatever, named after his estate, Xanadu. So again, it's kind of disappointing that Zan isn't here because she is a huge Xanadu freak about that word and thought she would have got a kick out of it. So hopefully, Zan, hopefully you're listening to this. So now you know. For the special effects shot, the really cool special effects shot, especially for 1987 Doctor Who, where Kane's face melts. Kind of like very much similar to the death of Tote in Raiders of the Lost Ark. They basically made that up with wax that they melted down and then sped up to make it look like it was melting faster to achieve that kind of quick melting effect. So that's how they did it. But in the difference for Doctor Who, because it's a family show, they have deliberately avoided the color red when they melted that. So it didn't look bloody, kind of like, they did in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Ronald Lacey, who had portrayed Tote in Raiders of the Lost Ark, was actually director Chris Clow's first choice to play Kane, but he was unavailable. So we almost had Tote from Raiders of the Lost Ark as Kane. And the original script featured a different but similar character called Razorback that was similar to the role that would be later occupied by Glitz. Apparently, after recognizing the similarities between Razorback and Glitz, executive producer John Nathan Turner encouraged Ian Briggs to bring Glitz back in place of Razorback. So they basically got rid of that character because J&T decided, well, hey, he's kind of like Glitz, so let's just bring Glitz back, which made sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Makes perfect sense.
Especially since we just saw in the previous season. And thankfully, Tony Selby was able to return. That speech at the end where Mel announces that she's leaving the TARDIS to travel with Glitz was actually the audition speech that Sylvester McCoy was given when trying out for the role of the Seventh Doctor.
Cool.
Yeah, right? That's pretty interesting. So when it became clear that this was going to be Mel's last episode, Sylvester McCoy insisted that they use that one instead. And this one was written again by Andrew Cartmel, for anyone wondering, instead of Ian Briggs. So, a little bit kind of like with the Capaldi era, with the pilot, where they kind of had that audition scene with Pearl Mackie, auditioning for the role of Belle Potts. And Stephen Moffat incorporated that in the final version. So it's kind of interesting to see those little audition scenes work their way into actual Doctor Who canon.
One of the cool things that we've done a couple of times in the modern era is they've given modern Doctor Who monologues and given it to the classic actors to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like Davison has done that, and
Colin Baker.
Colin Baker, and I always think that's nice. So that's kind of I always think there are, for every Doctor, there's certain monologues that are classics. So that's kind of cool that he thought enough to make that change. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I also was reading, right, and this you may be bringing up. This is one of the few times where you got rid of a companion and got a new companion at the end of a season.
Yeah, and originally Ace was supposed to join Kane as a mercenary with his sovereign, that infamous sovereign that he uses, becoming permanently imprinted on her palm. And then Ace was supposed to rebel then only when ordered to kill Mel. But apparently John Nathan Turner and Andrew Cartmel and whatnot, they decided that, well, it's kind of a little similar to Balage's arc. So they changed things and instead made her a waitress in that ice cream shop.
And probably a good thing she got out when she did.
Pretty much. Well, it's especially after, she kept dumping milkshakes on everybody's heads. So, which we'll talk about.
Ace has a temper problem.
No. She's just a little, she's basically does what everybody wants to do, but is afraid to do.
Yeah, and she doesn't suffer fools lightly.
Nope. Which I totally respect. I'm totally with her on that one. We are in simpatico on that one. All right. 3 topics. So, topic number 1, let's talk, of course, about the 7th Doctor. And instead of Mel or Ace, let's talk about Sabalom Glitz with the 7th Doctor in this one. Because the two kind of get paired up for a good portion of the episode as they go questing through the ice caverns for the dragon. So I want to get everybody's thoughts on these two, the return of Glitz. Obviously, Jesse, this is probably your first experience with Glitz, I'm guessing. But let's start with you, Holly, since you're our special guest. What are your thoughts on the 7th Doctor in this story where he has to say goodbye to Mel and hello to Ace and gets reunited with Glitz only in a different, now that he's post-regeneration?
Yeah, the post-regeneration, Doctor doesn't have the short-term memory loss on this one, because as soon as he hears Mel say Glitz, he just turns his back. I'm interested in the paper. I'm not. Nope. Oh, you got into trouble again. Oh, so sorry. You want me to bail me out? Want me to help you bail you out? I don't think so. You did the mess. I'm not too surprised.
So I think I think a lot of us 7th Doctor fans know that the 7th Doctor is very capable of holding a grudge.
Yes.
And letting people know that he has a grudge. But Jesse, how about you? Do you have any thoughts about Sabalom Glitz, our classic era intergalactic con man?
Yeah, like I said, it made me think of Harry Mudd.
Yeah.
And so which is
a great
good
comparison.
thing.
Which is a great comparison.
Yeah. I love the interaction where he's a little bit of a coward, but then also he's not totally, the idea, like he's always angling the, I got to get my fortune. I got this map, and he's always negotiating and trying to do things. He truly is just a great scoundrel and someone who I had not thought of the Captain Jack comparison, and that's a good one too. But Jack's more competent than this guy seems to be.
Yes,
so that's why this one is he's just not that good.
That's why I think the Harry Mudd comparison is fair. But I think
Yeah.
I think I would also throw in a little bit of Quark from Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Oh,
Yeah.
excellent. Yes, that is
Yeah.
perfect.
Because
Maybe a touch of Randall Calrissian after having to deal with
that's
Darth
another
Vader
good one.
and Darth Vader
Yeah.
changing the deal.
Yeah.
We got some serious space scoundrels out there.
He does. It's just really neat.
Scoundrels.
And I love how the Doctor, is kind of just shaking his head and rolling his eyes at the guy, but at the same time not totally dismissing him, and they're working together. This was a fun almost companion, as we talk a lot when we're visiting with this one. This was great. And we just had the episode where they talked about a previous experience that never existed.
When we were talking Time Lash last week.
Yeah, and I said, well, it didn't bother me because I just assumed it wasn't an episode I've seen. This one, the other one, this didn't bother me because I'm like, okay, I just haven't seen the first time he's appeared. But it's kind of neat. I always love it when they bring back a character show that the Whovian universe, while big, has some consistency to it.
Yeah, because when we first met Glitz, he was kind of paired up with this guy named Dipper in the Mysterious Planet. They were kind of like both, kind of sort of mercenaries going around doing the bidding of the Time Lords, as it turns out. And, obviously for money, for a few grotzits, as Glitz likes to say. But the second appearance it was just Glitz. At some point he got rid of Dipper. Maybe he killed him. We don't know. We never got that story. But he ended up helping the Sixth Doctor deal with the Valyard in that story. And so when the Seventh Doctor reunites with Glitz in this story, in Dragonfire, it almost seems like the Seventh Doctor feels a little bit of gratitude toward Glitz because he did help him deal with the Valyard, even though, albeit reluctantly, because, hey, it's Glitz. He's not exactly the bravest of the Doctor's allies, certainly not anywhere near the Brigadier. Let's just put it that way. But by the same token, I think the Seventh Doctor feels a little bit of loyalty to Glitz as a result. So, and then combined with the Seventh Doctor's just curiosity about the dragon, as we're told that, he gives Mel this big line that, well, hey, I just kind of wanted to check out, Svartos and see what's going on here on Ice World, and it turns out no, he's got because hey, it's the Seventh Doctor, right? He's got an ulterior motive, which is one of the defining characteristics of this Doctor. He always has an ulterior motives, and this, as we find out, is he's heard the legend of the dragon. He wants to find out what's going on with that, and that combined with Glitz, having this map. Sends them into this adventure down in the ice caverns together, and kind of an odd pairing. The Seventh Doctor still pretty new in this incarnation, but starting to be that more just a hint of that manipulator that we get to see in later seasons, and certainly definitely a change of pace from the Sixth Doctor. Not nearly as boisterous. So Holly, what did you make of the revelation that apparently, as far as Glitz was concerned, he won that map in a game of cards, but it turned out it was actually rigged by Kane, so that Glitz would end up taking that map down there. So, and with the bonus attachment of a transmitting device in the kind of seal that's kind of attached to the map.
I was a little surprised to find out that it was Kane behind it, because I thought, oh, it's Glitz. It's all, all the way, your typical smuggler.
Yeah.
I'm going to card cheat. I'm going to cheat just to make, hey, one last score, and I promise I'm changing my ways. I'm done. Type of a deal.
So you thought Glitz was generally trying to call it a day after this one big last score?
I'm thinking so. With him wanting to sail off on his ship in Nosferatu,
yes,
instead of hanging around and having to pay the fees, though, naming your ship that, either you're a big vampire fan or it's more trouble than it's worth. trying to repair, so it's draining you of your funds.
That's a great point. That's a great point. I'm going to give you points for that. That was awesome.
Absolutely, that is great
Points.
points. Yes.
Points to Holly for that observation. Yes. I still kind of wonder, like, okay, why did he name his ship the Nosferatu? Was, apparently,
There's this
you know, did he, maybe that's all he had out there in space was like old vampire movies. But okay, well, let's go for it.
Unless you wanted from a race of vampire
Or
aliens?
maybe he kind of like encountered the vampires like kind of like in State of Decay, right?
That's what yeah.
So, since we talked about that not too long ago. So Jesse, what did you think of the Seventh Doctor and Glitz's adventure down in the ice caverns together?
Well, I thought it was interesting that they're kind of teamed up together. It is interesting that this doctor, the doctor has this, I want to see the dragon, and the idea, I remember the sitcom they had, Earl, well, I can't, where he.
My name is Earl.
Yeah, My Name is Earl, where he had that list of all the things he was trying to fix. The doctor has a running list of places he wants to go, things he wants to see, want to, investigate. And, you never physically see the list, but you can just see, and that's been consistent among the doctors. Like, well, I've always wanted to check out the ice fires of blah, 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 or the dragon of this. So I thought that was very cool. Once again,
how long do you think that to-do list is? It's got to be really long, right?
Really, really long.
Several football fields at least.
Or probably a couple of Steve Rogers notebooks long of stuff he has to check out from what
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
And the other thing is...
and it does have Trouble Man written down in there.
And I hate to say this, but I have to, and then I'll let it go.
Yeah.
Such a better costume than our previous Doctor. I mean, even though once again the sweater seems warm, and it would be, but it's such a better look than poor Colin. Just I'm just watching this. Immediately, it gains a point or two. Just when I'm rating it, like, okay, this is a little bit odd, but certainly not hideous.
Yeah.
So
you kind of like the, I don't know if it's kind of like teal or kind of tealish cream colored, but with the paisley and
with the the kind of almost the question marks and such.
the question mark pull over and
now,
the kind of rolled up Panama hat a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I like the hat a lot. And I like his frustration at times. Sometimes, like when he's putting on the hat, and he does that. He's a very good physical actor using that hat and things.
Yeah.
There are you'll see sometimes they use props really well. Joshua Malina, who's been in West Wing and Scandal and Sports Night, will play with cards sometimes because he's loves poker, and they'll do that little bit of acting with a piece of prop that kind of adds character to it. I think McCoy does that.
Well, he is a physical comedian.
Yes, he is.
So he does have that background, that stage background of
and
performing.
Like playing spoons. I know he does it, but when I saw him, he was in Dallas once and he was sharing the stage with Karen Gillian. They were doing a panel together, and he grabbed a couple of spoons and started playing it for her because she had not known about that.
That's funny.
I don't know if I
would have loved to have seen that, by the way.
Yeah. At this point, the past two Doctors, right? This one and the previous, they're trying to do things that I don't know if it's necessarily smart. Colin Baker was a very unlikable Doctor, and now then Sylvester McCoy is a manipulative Doctor, right? Like you've talked about that.
But not yet. I mean, he doesn't really start becoming that until the next season 25.
Yeah. And I don't know if that was I don't know if I enjoy that trait of the Doctor. I don't know if I like those stories. This was a very good story, but I'm just, as you mentioned, it made me think of it. And you also, I don't know if it's because I know this, I'm feeling it, or maybe I'm feeling it because it shows, but it feels like the show is starting to show its age a little bit. On, when I've seen these a couple of times, this episode's a really fun episode, but you just see a little bit that.
Well, it is a very 80s-ish episode in terms of, because we start seeing how the budget cuts are affecting the show in terms of production quality. There's a bit of 80s cheesiness. The special effects aren't as good as, say, on Star Trek The Next Generation at this point because they don't have the budget for it. And I
think Turner's a bad showrunner. We've established it too, and I hate to kick the dead horse.
Kick a person while he's down. Yeah.
Yeah, but it just does seem.
You're right.
Yeah,
you think so, Holly?
Yeah, I've read a autobiography about J&T and some of the stuff that went on behind the scenes the last few years, and oh boy, yeah.
Yeah, there
are
some stories.
It wasn't pretty.
Maybe we should have you on for a special J&T special episode.
Oh, I would really like that.
Just mark it on the calendar.
Maybe
give me a date.
The J&T roast, if you will. That would be interesting. So yeah, I think before I'm sure we need to move on, but I just want to quickly mention that. I think this story, Dragonfire, I think it was, as far as I'm concerned, it was the first story, I think, where Sylvester McCoy was really figuring out his Doctor. The previous stories, Time in the Ronnie, Paradise Towers, and Delta and the Bannerman, a couple of those we haven't talked about yet here. But I think they had basically written a very generic Doctor that Sylvester McCoy was trying to kind of make his own along the way. But I think it's this story that kind of played more to Sylvester's talents. If you notice, he tries to really sell the idea that, hey, they're walking around on ice. He's using his skills as a physical comedian to highlight the fact that, oh, hey, what I'm walking around is very slippery and I'm falling. And you notice nobody else, because this thing is obviously shot in a studio and they're obviously not walking on ice or small ice crystals, that everybody's just walking around like it's no big deal. Like they're just, not slipping. They're not having problems with traction. So it's McCoy that's like, oh, hey, I'm rounding a corner. Whoa, look out. I'm going to fall. Or there's like a little sliding. I have to put my umbrella down to hold my balance. And just kind of showing, there's little things like when when they're about ready to leave the cafe and he reaches over, there's kind of like an alien dog or something, and he kind of reaches over to pet it, and it, snaps at him, and he kind of jerks his hand away in a very comedic fashion. This is where Sylvester McCoy is kind of making this Doctor his own, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. All right. Anything else about the Seventh Doctor Glitz before we move on?
Not to me.
All right. So let's move on. Topic number 2, which I like to call Hello, Ace. Goodbye, Mel. So you say goodbye, and I say hello. Hello,
When I saw the top that song rang through my head, I was like, yeah, well, same here.
So let's talk about Ace's introduction, obviously, and Mel's departure in this one. So, Jesse, let's start with you on this one.
So I didn't think of hello, goodbye.
Yeah.
I thought you were working as a waitress in a ice cream bar when I met you. I picked you out, I shook you up, and turned you around, turned you into someone new.
Yeah.
So
don't you want me? Yeah. I'm New Wave guy. I totally knew that one.
Yeah, I knew you did. That was for you, Charles.
Thank you.
I like Ace, But
Boom.
but I have to say this. It really bothers me that they say she's 16.
Mm-hmm.
That just bothers me that there is an underage female companion traveling with a male doctor.
She's not the first.
I'm just saying that's
Victoria,
the first one.
Vicky, Susan.
But they're under 60. Yeah, Susan's his granddaughter.
Well, yeah, as far as we know, right?
I'm just saying it just bothered me a little bit.
Yeah.
I needed her to be 18. So,
you old fuddy-duddy, you.
Yeah, I'm just saying, me too. It's a thing now.
It's 1987. There was no hanky-panky. But this is the classic era. They didn't do doctor companion hookups back in the classic era, okay?
I'm just saying that bothered me a little bit.
Is it 16 in Zathros years, and she's older in Paravel years?
There you go.
So
okay,
there is that.
Okay, it's all wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Yes,
she's been working at this ice freezer planet.
Ice World, yeah.
Ice, yeah.
I had not spent a lot of time with Ace, and I liked her a lot in this episode. Though I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Didn't we have an episode where we went back to Ace's neighborhood?
Yes, we did. Survival.
Okay, so
that was her the last appearance of Ace on classic Doctor Who. Yeah.
Because didn't she say something about she didn't know her family, but then I was confused because we later went and saw where she came from and the neighborhood all knew her. I was a little confused, thus watching this out of order. I was a little confused. So
well, also it might have been Ace lying too.
That's a good point. Yeah, good point.
Or to be more fair, it's probably the script editor, Andrew Cartmel, not really having Ace completely figured out yet. Yeah.
But right from the beginning, she's there with her jacket, her love of bombs,
Nitro 9, baby.
Her impulsiveness, her and you guys say doing what you might want to do, that other people think about doing. I go just maybe a hair trig of a temper problem, but she's a lot of fun. And I was really enjoyed her interacting with Mel because they have two different personalities, but Mel was kind of enjoying her, and I think it was a nice send-off that Mel's thinking, okay, hey, I'm going to go do this. Well, I guess I'll be alone, and Mel going, really? Kind of hint, hey, look, there's this underage kid here that you can kidnap and get wanted for.
Well, no, to be fair, Mel said Ace doesn't have anywhere to go. So essentially it's the Doctor taking in Ace as kind of his ward, if you will.
Yes. And it is, I think so, yes.
Mel finding a companion or new, almost, I wouldn't call Ace a pet or a stray.
Yeah.
Can we keep her?
Yeah.
Hey, if Bruce Wayne can do it with 5 Robins, I'm pretty sure that the Doctor
is something that the Gotham CPS should look into. But yes, we'll move on.
Yeah. But so overall, I'm going to get Holly's thoughts on this, obviously. But overall, Jesse, that you thought it was a good introduction to Ace?
Yeah, and I really
and a good send off for Mel.
Yeah, it was. Now I don't know much about Mel. I have watched. Right. I told you I remember 4 or 5 years ago I watched The Trial of Time Lord, and I realized in doing my research that Mel was someone you never got an introduction to, right? Because of the way they did this timey-wimey, you really never knew how she joined the Doctor.
We did talk about her in Time of the Ronnie. Yeah. Sylvester McCoy's first story when we did that one. But
and so and her and her carrot juice, right, for the Doctor. That's what I remember.
Carrot juice.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so I think I liked Ace. I liked Mel. I thought it was I thought they were a nice combination. I could see it would have been kind of fun to have them both hang around for a few episodes, but not to be.
Okay. Holly, what about you? What did you make of Ace's introduction and Mel's departure?
I loved Ace's introduction. I was a little surprised to see Mel go, but I can completely understand where they probably didn't want to have a situation dealing with a crowded TARDIS. But just the way that Ace and Mel played off each other too. I mean, they made a great team up. Which is, Ace handing Mel the nitrogen. Oh, just be a little bit careful with that, a little volatile. And Mel's just like, okay, why'd you hand me the explosives?
Well, it was kind of funny to see, because it's almost like a odd couple pairing with Ace and Mel. With Mel kind of being the Felix Unger and Ace being the Oscar Madison. She's the slob. She's got her little apartment, and it's like clothes are everywhere. And she tells Mel, just sit on them. Don't move them around. Just sit on them like everybody else does, won't you? And
that's a really good comparison.
So consequently, because of this, I think this is probably Mel's last story is probably my favorite story with her as a companion. I think the pair, Mel by herself with the Doctor didn't quite work for the most part for me, but Mel with Ace works in this really, like I said, odd couple kind of way. They have a good little bantering, and they get along really well. It's almost kind of like this. They're almost like kind of like best friends. They hit it off rather well, really quickly, and Ace, for someone who she just met, just kind of confesses a little bit of her, that she was caught up in this time storm, and she feels kind of, a little vulnerable, and maybe she gets a little frustrated, like with Mel about like, look, I don't have no mom and dad. I don't need no mom and dad. It's just me, all right. But Mel, I think, consequently, Mel reaches out to her, and kind of because Mel's a very caring person, and kind of reaches out to Ace, and Ace, because of this, because Mel's very kind, Ace responds accordingly and treats her just as well, and they kind of bond, do a little girl bonding, which obviously you didn't get to see much of in classic Doctor Who.
Mm-mm.
So I kind of dug that. All right. So I loved Mel's exit scene. I thought she had some of her best dialogue ever with Sylvester McCoy in those final moments. But I did think it was a little weird that instead of just the Doctor taking her back to Earth, she ends up going with Glitz, of all people, and apparently it's to keep him out of trouble. Which, if I was Glitz, I'd be like, look, I've got my new ship, the Nosferatu 2, and I don't need Mel, like, dragging me down, okay? I don't need her, trying to keep me in check. I want to do what I want to do. I want to be the captain of my own ship. I don't need Mel around. But for some reason, just because, well, hey, we're writing Mel out and Glitz is only a guest star, we'll just have Mel leave with Glitz. Did that strike anybody a little odd that pairing happened, or do you think it was natural enough?
A little unusual, but I mean, it works.
So I didn't know enough of. Go ahead, Holly. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I think Mel would have probably wanted to stay around a little bit longer just to help the Doctor get used to Ace.
Okay. And go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, I didn't know Mel well enough to know if this seemed out of character or not. It did seem, now that you mentioned, though, kind of a dumb thing. Like, okay, why wouldn't you? I mean, if you're going to keep exploring, why wouldn't you keep exploring with the Doctor? Why there doesn't seem to be any romantic chemistry between them.
No.
There isn't something like, well, I want to go explore, or there's something, or, and the idea of, well, I've got to keep him out of trouble does seem a little flip. Like, why does she think that's her responsibility? So I did not think of that when watching it. It kind of like, oh, okay, Mel's leaving. But now that you pointed out, the next time I see it, I'm going to go, okay, that makes no sense.
Yeah,
Thank you, Charles.
Well, you're welcome. That's what I'm here for. But I think, but as you know, she was kind of What was that? I'm sorry, Holly.
Isn't Mel's job kind of keep the doctor out of trouble too?
That's a great point. Maybe Mel thought, well, this is all I can do with the doctor. I can only go so far with him. Maybe it's kind of Mel's nature that she likes lost causes. And she figures, well, maybe Glitz needs me more than the doctor does, because the doctor's going to have Ace around. So maybe I should just go off with Glitz, who has nobody at this point.
Okay.
I mean, if I was writing it, that's how I would approach it, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the most sense to me anyway, watching, this several times over the decades, that it just seems like, that maybe Glitz needed her more.
Yeah, I got that. That's a good thing.
That's the only thing I can think of anyway. All right. Anything else about this topic before we move on? Okay,
I'm good.
Just a great introduction. Loved Sophie Aldred, just kills it right from the start as Ace. As far as I'm concerned, she's just fantastic. And you could see such potential, much more potential there for her as a companion than you could, I think, with Mel, with the Seventh Doctor.
Yeah, I saw on IMDb under their trivia that many Whovian experts think of her as the first modern companion.
And I would agree with that.
Well-rounded. I had not seen enough, but it makes sense that she would be. I think that's kind of cool.
Well, now I think about it really quickly. There's that moment, when they're confronted by the dragon down in the ice caverns, and if you notice, there's like a side-by-side shot of Mel and Ace. Mel is screaming her head off.
Right.
And because it's Mel, right? Mel always screams. That was one of her least attractive traits as far as I was concerned, that she just constantly screamed at everything at pitch at the top of her lungs. And Ace, meanwhile, is just staring there, kind of, her mouth a little agape, but not screaming.
Yeah.
So that was the difference, I think, between the two personalities, was that Mel was the screamer, but Ace, she wasn't a screamer. And because of that, she was something different for classic Doctor Who. And I think that's why fans they associate Ace more as a modern era companion because of that. She wasn't the typical Doctor Who screaming female companion.
Makes a lot of sense. Good.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Topic number 3, last topic today, A Song of Ice and Fire. Well, where have I heard that before?
See what you did there.
So did I.
So let's talk about Kane, the dragon, or Ice and Fire, right? And we'll throw in Balaj as well in this discussion, because Kane's number 1 has a little bit of disgruntlement with her employer, Kane. And a little bit of history, as we find out through the course of the story. So, Holly, we'll start with you. Thoughts on our big bad, Kane, and our supposed to be scary, but more cutesy than scary, dragon in this one.
Well, Kane was an interesting villain, to say the least. I mean, when he's first introduced, kind of shadowing, it's just like, okay, and then more power hungry, doing anything and everything to get the Dragonfire. And then the cutesy, it's almost like the alien from the movie Aliens, and then the alien from ID Independence Day kind of had a little baby. And I'm just like, okay. this looks really familiar.
And then they kind of
but
visited like Disney World, so they have the kind of like big floppy head
yeah,
that kind of rolls around.
Just a little bit, just a touch of Ocean Master, like in
Yeah.
the comic book, just a little bit, the big head.
Yep.
So yeah, not a impressive monster.
But it was kind of cute, right? I mean, it was for a fun little story like this one, because it's not a dark story by any means. But you had a pretty good villain, I thought. I thought Kane was a pretty good villain, kind of like almost in that Mr. Freeze kind of vein.
Yes,
A little bit.
I was a little for being such a lighthearted episode. It was kind of the dark turn that we end up the dragon dies and gets decapitated. It's
Right.
like, wait, what? Did I change episodes somehow? Did I take a nap and I woke up with a darker episode?
But technically, it wasn't really alive, right? It was kind of like an
Right.
artificial being, right?
Yes. And then I just love I'm melting. I did think of,
Raiders.
Raiders immediately. But Kane was a good villain. And I love the idea that all this work he was doing was really for nothing. Right? Like, because he's been stuck and because he doesn't know, what you've been searching to get back to hasn't existed in
Thousands
eons.
of years. Yeah.
And
Because apparently his son, we find out toward the end of the big reveal at the end of the episode was that Kane does all this stuff, like you said, and he finds out, the doctor points out to him, like, well, you can't go back to Proamon, your home planet, because, it doesn't exist anymore because your son went supernova. So,
Yeah.
Big fail, and
Yes.
Kane doesn't take it very well, does he?
Mm-mm.
And it was kind of a neat thing to see them. Okay, I've got to recharge my body so far. Once again, as we obscure references, right? Aquaman's got to get in the water every hour,
It's
now
Mr.
then
Freeze. He's more Mr. Freeze than Aquaman.
Freeze, yes.
Yeah.
But I thought that was fun, and I did like his the manipulation his number one was doing.
Maybe it's because I'm wearing a Batman T-shirt. I'm thinking Mr. Freeze.
Yes, there you go. I think that was she ended up some nice characters, and we got to see Kane kill some people through his freezing touch. It's just he was a good villain, and she was added an extra layer of complexity with her trying to manipulate him as well and try to go get under it. So that made for fun.
Yeah, it's kind of like he's Mr. Freeze Meister, he's Mr. Cold. Yeah, but anyway, I thought it was interesting that Kane, in true bad guy fashion. Okay, so we find out through the course of the story that he apparently was part of this Kane Zarna criminal gang from Proamon, and something happened to Xana. Presumably, she was killed somehow, and he's still grieving over her. And he brings in this sculptor, to make an ice sculpture of her that really doesn't look anything like her. It's not very good, if you notice. And once the sculpture is done, he kills the sculptor, only to maybe a half hour later lose the sculpture entirely when Balaj and Krakauer try to overthrow him and raise the temperature in the chambers to kill him, melting the statue in the process. Wah, wah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, maybe I shouldn't have killed that sculptor. Maybe I did that a little too soon. So I think it was a good attempt to kind of, develop Kane as a character and make him a little more three-dimensional than a lot of classic Doctor Who villains. What do you guys think?
Yeah, and he wasn't too scenery chewing like you would normally expect from your Doctor Who evil villain of an
Like
episode story.
he wasn't mustache twirling, so to speak.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I mean, there were touches, but at least they were able to pull back.
yeah. But so what did you guys make of once Kane, we talked about this, that he finds out that his planet's gone. The planet that he's been trying to get back for 3,000 years in this kind of, I guess he's immortal. Living in this prison that we find out Ice World is essentially a prison to hold him, and the dragon is essentially the prison guard. And for some reason they thought it was a good idea. Well, hey, let's just put the means to Kane's escape inside the dragon and put it in his head, and I'm sure that'll solve everything. But Kane, once he finds out that his planet's gone, he makes this incredibly quick decision to kill himself and open up a screen that apparently is able not just to let in the light rays, but also the heat rays, which I don't get whatsoever. Not sure about the physics on that one, especially on board a spaceship. But and why it doesn't fry everything else in sight if it fried him. But what did you make of his decision to kill himself? Did you think it was a little dark for Doctor Who to have the villain commit suicide? Jesse, anybody?
No, I was okay with it because I felt like it was the shock of knowing that your civilization has been gone forever.
Yeah.
That you're alone. You have the only thing he's been living for, in a lot of ways, is not necessarily revenge, but escape. And I can go back and I can do this. And I think just it all overwhelms him once he sees that. I also think that watching this from a modern Who perspective, this was not their intent, right? But you think of the Doctor being the last Time Lord,
Mm-hmm.
and being the last Gallifreyan. So there is that other little wrinkle to it that you see, that the two different ways the characters adjust to that. I thought it was actually a very neat, because he has nothing to live for.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so he just does, and so he just stepped into the light and moved on to the next thing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, how about you, Holly?
I agree with you, Jesse. He doesn't have anything else to live for, and basically he's been living what he thought was the truth for however long he's been in that prison, and to find out that it's a lie, and then maybe this was a whole setup by Balaj just to maybe exact some revenge on him, and
Yeah.
okay, here's what I'm going to do. Just kind of try to get over it.
Yep. So speaking of Balaj, since you brought her up, what did you make of Balaj and this kind of history that's implied between her and Kane, that she was a young girl, not much older than Ace, when Kane tried to recruit her, and here it is years later. She complains about being old at 33, 34, which I was like, try reaching 50, just saying. But if you think you're old, but maybe it's just that she feels like, she's been with him a long time, 20 years roughly. And she's having a lot of regrets now about that original deal, and she wants out of the deal. She tries to, she makes this plea to Kane, well, hey, just give me Glitz's ship and let me go. And we'll just kind of call it quitsies. But Kane doesn't want to let her go. He wants to keep that tight control over her, presumably forever, I guess. So what'd you make of Balaj and her dilemma of trying to escape Kane's control?
I don't blame her. I mean, I'm thinking we're missing a little backstory there too, as to how they met, was it some sort of deal with Balage's family, or was it some sort of the planet that they were on, if it was some sort of arranged power connection that we do this for the betterment of everybody else, and it fails spectacularly, and she's just like, okay, I put my time in, I'm done being your go-to right-hand person,
Mm-hmm.
time to pony up, end the contract.
So do you think so? So what you're saying is we probably should have had more time for Balage's backstory and less time for, say, Stellar walking around Ice World and her mother looking for her. Is that a fair assessment?
Fair assessment, because, I mean, Stellar's nice, but, I mean, it really didn't play a whole lot into the whole story unless there's something that we completely missed and Stellar
Right.
Mm-hmm.
had a
And
major more key role playing than we actually realized.
did they plan on having that later and they just never followed through? What was the
Right.
reason, right? Like, later that's going to be the doctor's companion as a grown up, like,
Yeah.
like similar
Like
to what
there should have been a
Bond
payoff,
did,
is
right?
what you're
Yeah,
saying. There
I
should have been
agree.
a payoff.
Just the way that they froze on Stellar in that dress that I would have killed to have had when I was a young little girl.
Right.
That smile on her face is just like, wait a minute, am I missing something here?
Well, to be fair, she was a really cute girl. I mean, she was
She's a very
she
cute little
was.
girl.
adorable
Yes.
little girl, but
Yes.
just like I
That's
said,
what I was trying to say something, but I don't know what.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it really
so
didn't
cute.
it really didn't serve any purpose of the story, and it
Right.
just to me it felt like, well, hey, we kind of ran out of story. We kind of need to fill this up somehow. So let's just write in this character of this little girl and her mom, and occasionally check in with these two. And it only kind of really connects at the very end when the TARDIS disappears and the little girl's kind of looking at it, smiling that it's cool that it's disappeared.
Yeah, that's no payoff whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
it just really didn't serve any purpose. And
I agree.
And I agree with Holly here that you could have used that time to further develop the characters that you already had, the other characters, the more important characters. As far as I'm concerned, that Stella and her mom's story should have ended the moment Ace dumped that milkshake on her mom's head.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
That should have been the last we saw of her.
Yeah, that establishes that Ace is,
Yeah.
impulsive, has a slight temper, and is not going to take guff from anyone.
Yeah, Stellar's
and
mom
we move on.
Stellar's mom was being, that customer from hell. Ace,
Yes.
Ace did what everybody dreams of doing at their job to someone like that, and that should have been it, as far as I'm concerned. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else about the story that we overlooked? Holly? Jesse?
I don't think so. It's just that that Nitro 9 works better than WD-40.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes.
And Ace's comment about blowing up the art room, that the teachers couldn't understand it was art. And I thought, hey, it worked for the Who.
There we go.
It did. And it gets rid of those pesky ice jams, I might point out.
Yes, it sure does.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so favorite quotes. Anybody got any favorite quotes of the episode? There's a lot of pretty good lines in this one.
There
Pretty
are
good-
some.
pretty
Go
good
ahead,
dialogue.
Holly, first.
Well, mine's at the very end. This is an exchange between the Ace and the Doctor. 3 rules. 1, I'm in charge. Whatever you say, Professor. 2, I'm not the Professor. I'm the Doctor. Whatever you want. And 3, well, I'll think of the third when we get you back to Perryville.
And that was a great smile by Sylvester McCoy when he said that last part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All mischievous and knowing, and
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
great.
very charming.
that's a great exchange. How about
Yeah.
Jesse? How about you? You got a quote?
So, I and you kind of mentioned this at the end, right, where Mel says, "Oh, all right, you win," and the Doctor, "I do. I usually do." Mel, "I'm going now,"
It's
and
so
the
much-
Doctor,
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yes, you're going. You've gone for ages. You've already gone. You're still here. Just arrived. Haven't even met you yet. It all depends on who you are and how you look at it. Strange business time. I was like, that's a very Doctor Who-ish quote.
Yeah.
So, yes.
And the delivery by Sylvester McCoy, he does it in a very poignant way. And,
Yes.
this wistful, this time, like you could feel that he's this Time Lord in that moment because, he's the guy who perceives that it all depends on how you look at time.
And, Charles, it reminded me of Tom Baker in the 50th anniversary special, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where he's the curator, right?
The curator, yep.
Yeah, where he's like, have you met me? Maybe I'm you. Maybe you're me. Maybe what, and just kind of,
Mm-hmm.
He played it really good. And then my last one is Mel, I'll send you a postcard. And Doctor, I don't have an address. Oh, I'll put it in a bottle and throw it into space. You'll reach it in time. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that was good. You guys are stealing all the great quotes. All right. Good thing I got a few more. So I like the exchange when Balaj, the Doctor, and Glitz are on the Nosferatu. And Balaj points her gun at Glitz and the Doctor. She says, "What are you doing here?" And the Doctor, having just had this a kind of a philosophical discussion with the guard who's guarding the Nosferatu, says, "That's a very difficult question. Why is everyone around here so preoccupied with metaphysics?" And Glitz points out, "I think she's going to kill us, Doctor." And the Doctor replies, an existentialist. So, thought that was good. As a philosophy buff, I really appreciated the gags about metaphysics and existentialism. I thought that was great.
And it was funny, him back and forth with the guard, right?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
It was really well done.
It was a great scene when McCoy or the Seventh Doctor, like he's trying to distract the guard so that Glitz can get aboard the Nosferatu, and he figures, well, I'll just kind of like do what I do. I talk a lot of nonsense, and the guard will be confused by this. And so he brings up this discussion, but the guard, apparently an intellectual, flips it back on it, which I thought was like the best. That was a great story idea because you never see anything like this, that the guard is actually more intelligent than your hero. And the guard is like flipping it back on him. Well, yes, and it's so great to talk to an intellectual. So what do you think about this and this and this? And the Doctor's just like, yeah.
Yeah, it was good. That was really good. Yeah, I love that.
I love the way that they kind of made that twist on expectations. I thought it was adorable.
I agree.
And then Kane with Mel and Ace, where Kane is threatening Ace and trying to tell Mel to hand over the Dragonfire. And Kane says, "You girl, bring me the Dragonfire." And Mel says, "No, I'm not going to lift a finger to help you." And Ace replies to that, "Melanie, don't listen to her. She doesn't mean it. Donut, give him the treasure. I'm 16. I'm too young to be freeze-dried."
Yeah.
That was great. And, of course, lastly, the Doctor saying to Mel, "Think about me when you're living your life one day after another, all in a neat pattern. Think about the homeless traveler in his old police box with his days like crazy paving."
Nice.
And for those wondering, crazy paving is kind of like, unusual, like assorted shapes of stonework that gets, like you use it kind of like for driveways. It's not like exactly the same shaped tiles. It's kind of like a jagged piece that looks like this and another maybe larger jagged piece and with
almost
kind of like a puzzle, more like a puzzle.
Mosaic.
Yeah,
Yes.
mosaic. So that's essentially what crazy paving is for anybody wondering about that line.
Very nice.
So just little home tip from yours truly here at Next Stop Everywhere. All right. Holly, do you have any other quotes?
Nope. That exchange is my only one.
All right. So what's everybody's ratings? Go. You got
I do have one more.
All right.
Yes. I was saving this for you, but I thought for sure you'd do it, and it works into my rating. It's just I don't feel properly dressed without a couple of cans of nitro.
9. Yeah, that was good.
Nice.
Yeah, that was good.
Nice.
Yeah, let's see. All right, so Jesse, since you brought it up, what's your rating?
8 out of 10 backpacks filled with nitro.
That's good. That's an excellent one. Holly, how about you?
I'm going to give it 9 out of 10 ant hunters.
Oh, you really like this one.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Good.
Which makes sense why you wanted to talk about it. I'm going to give this one, I'm kind of with Jesse on this one. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 bad ice sculptures.
Nice. Very good.
It was either that or dumped milkshakes. So that was my backup.
Yes. Yeah,
All
I
right.
like that.
All right. So for probably the last time for 2020, our reverse the polarity. We're going to reverse the polarity back and then reverse it again back to 2017 with, if you liked Dragonfire, I recommend Thin Ice. From the third episode from Series 10 in 2017, written by Sarah Dollard. And the reason I chose this story, the 12th Doctor and Bill Potts realize they've arrived in 1814 London in the middle of a frost fair held on the frozen Thames River. After dressing in period clothes, they take time to explore the fair, unaware that the TARDIS sensors have identified a large life form kilometer long underneath the ice. So we have a creature hidden within the ice. That's the connection here. The Doctor's sonic screwdriver stolen by Spider, one of several orphan pickpockets led by Kitty. And the Doctor and Bill chase down Spider and Kitty away from the fair, where glowing lights underneath the ice encircle Spider's feet, and before the Doctor can save him, Spider is pulled through the ice. They track down Kitty and learn that she and Spider were paid to bring more people to the fair, with some having gone missing. The Doctor and Bill get into diving suits and purposely let the lights take them. They find the lights belong to strange fish and discover a giant sea creature ensnared by chains, which has eaten Spider and the others. Returning to land, they learn from Kitty that their benefactor is the wealthy Lord Sutcliffe, and Sutcliffe admits that his family used the creature to amass a fortune by feeding it victims, then collecting and selling its waste as a powerful replacement for coal. Fearing the Doctor knows too much, Sutcliffe sends the Doctor and Bill to be eaten while he rigs a bomb to cause the ice to shatter with maximum possible casualties. I wonder if it was Nitro 9. The Doctor and Bill escape, and while Bill works with Kitty and the other orphans to clear people away from the ice, the Doctor takes the bomb and places it on the creature's chains. When Sutcliffe sets off the bomb, the creature is able to swim free and Sutcliffe is lost in the freezing water. Afterward, the Doctor rewrites the deed to the Sutcliffe mansion and its staff to the orphans, allowing them to live there as long as they want. Returning to the present, Bill learns from old newspapers that the orphans lived a fulfilling life, but there was no mention of the sea creature. The end. So if you enjoyed Dragonfire, why don't you pull out the Capaldi set and give Thin Ice a watch? I think you'll enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty decent episode. Feedback this week. Well, hey, since Holly's here and was kind enough to share her feedback in person, we only have David K. Proctor writing in. So, Jesse, do you want to read Dave's email?
I do.
Go for it.
It says from Dave Proctor, hi Charles and Holly Mack and Zan Sprouse.
Well, unfortunately, Zan's not here, but thank you anyway.
Yes, indeed. The TARDIS is going to be snug this week, but what an awesome group of friends. I totally missed sending you a feedback on your 200th show. That is the last one I missed, not to tarnish my gold star any.
Yep.
Glitz, I believe he was from Trial of a Time Lord. He seems to take regeneration in stride. I've never seen this story before, but I have seen some Sylvester McCoy stories in the past. When I saw Survival, because Next Stop Everywhere was discussing it,
All right.
I saw that Ace was from England and basically current time. I was not expecting to see her on a different planet. So, was she kidnapped? And they talk about in the episode,
they talk about
right,
a time storm, but
Yes.
the question is, what caused the time storm? Ace seems to think it was her,
Yes.
but we find out later in a novel written by Sophie Aldred called A Charitable Earth, right? It was called something else. I forget what it was.
A Childhood's End.
That's it, A Childhood's End. Thank you very much, Holly. I appreciate that.
Nice.
So points to Holly again for that, for covering my ass on that one. So yeah, it reveals the true nature. I won't spoil the novel for you, but it definitely reveals the story of what was actually behind that time storm that got Ace from Perryvale on Earth all the way to Ice World.
Okay,
it's a good read.
It is a good read. I just
good.
finished it myself. I should have known the title. I just read it.
Okay. Wasn't Glitz on Earth with a different name in a different place? The fact and Ace being from Earth confused me a bit. Maybe I have this all wrong. The dragon looked like a cross between the alien from Alien and Predator and the alien from Independence Day. Ding, ding, ding. That costume must have been a challenge. The Doctor Who theme in this season is very different. I must say I'm a fan of the classic from the earlier incarnations. A bold use of the white Nazi helmets, a nice rewatch of the Ark of Covenant being opened. Well, I see what you did there, sir.
Yep.
I like how Mel gets to explain why the TARDIS is bigger on the inside. It's humanizing when Ace's room is shown to be a wreck like any teenaged human room. Goodbye, Mel. We hardly knew you. You should seek out Claren Ashildred. Yes. Their TARDIS becomes a diner, and they could use a cook. Maybe land in 20th century Phoenix. Stay healthy, everyone. Thank you, David K. Proctor. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. We always appreciate you writing in. Obviously, we always appreciate Holly writing in, and we appreciate her even more when she talks with us right here on Next Stop Everywhere. So,
absolutely.
Exactly, because she's always delightful and always welcome on our show. So if you want to be like Dave and Holly when she's not here, write to us. Next Stop Everywhere SMG at gmail.com. That's Next Stop Everywhere SMG for Southgate Media Group at the gmail.com. Or you can find us on Twitter at Next Stop SMG on Twitter. Facebook, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who Podcast. And Instagram at Next Stop Everywhere Podcast. Now, Holly, since you're our special guest, where can they find you? I'm guessing the Five-ish Fangirls Podcast, correct?
Yes, the Five-ish Fangirls Podcast. We're on Facebook at the Five-ish Fangirls, and we're also on the internet, the fiveishfangirls.com. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and then you can find me personally at HollyMac_79 on Instagram and Twitter.
Please do. Please follow her. She's delightful on those. And I believe you guys are about to celebrate your 300th episode of Five-ish Fangirls, right?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Well, congratulations, guys.
Awesome. Very nice.
Thank you.
Yay. I'll give you another little bit of this then for that. Give you a little applause. All right. Jesse, how about you? Where can they reach you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW, Jesse Jackson on Facebook and Instagram. I don't do much on Facebook and Instagram, but I am there. You can hear me on Set Listing Bruce, and this week there is actually a lot of episodes that I hope you will check out. On Monday, there is a singer-songwriter named Alice Ashcroft who is going to be joining me soon. We're going to try to figure it out probably 1st of January. She is a huge Doctor Who fan, and when she heard out that I did a Doctor Who podcast, she wanted to do, and so I'll probably have her on, and we'll talk about her Who journey. But she just had a new single out called Dungarees, and it's a really cool single. We talk about that today as we record this. My second interview with Maureen Van Zandt, Little Steven's wife, and she talked about Bruce's new album and the background. She goes into a little bit about Little Steven leaving the E Street Band. She specifically requested to come back because she didn't feel like we talked enough about actually Bruce Springsteen last time, and she didn't want to dissipate listeners. And then tomorrow there is a Crystal Vasquez who is a filmmaker that did a documentary about a local DFW radio Hall of Famer named Mike Reiner, and it is a very interesting documentary about sports talk and someone growing up in Dallas, and we talked about that. So very full week on Set Listing Bruce, so please check that out. Charles, I was a
Yeah.
little sad I did not have an X-Files episode to watch this week. So talk to me about what's going on with your other podcasts.
Well, I guess you have to talk to Zan about that a little bit.
Yes.
All right. As for me, of course, at Charles Skaggs on the Twitters or at Charles Skaggs on Instagram. Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. Where I talk all the stuff we talk here on Next Stop Everywhere. Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, Big Finish Audios, and more. All kinds of comic book sci-fi news of my other podcasts for Southgate Media Group, including, Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast, where Zan Sprouse, whom you would have heard today, joining us, but unfortunately she's not here. But you can check us out on Ghostwood, where right now we just finished up our Twin Peaks actors who have appeared on the X-Files. So that was a nice little 6-episode retrospective. And tomorrow, hopefully, if Zan's feeling better, we are going to be discussing The Elephant Man, the 1980 David Lynch film, which stars, Sir Anthony Hopkins, Sir John Gielgud, Sir John Hurt, better known to Doctor Who fans as the War Doctor, and Anne Bancroft's in that movie, and it's a very fascinating movie, and it's one that I think kind of brought David Lynch into more mainstream acceptance, because this film was nominated for Best Picture. Lynch got his first nomination for Best Director for the Academy Awards, and John Hurt got an acting nomination. So if you want to hear us talk a little bit about John Hurt, especially, being Next Stop Everywhere Doctor Who fans, I hope you check us out on Ghostwood for episode, it's going to be 87, and that's going to be hopefully coming out this week. So fingers crossed, guys, we'll be doing that. If not, definitely the week after. Also, Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, where DJ Nick and Jesse and I, we talk Titans and Doom Patrol. Not a lot to talk about on that one because both shows are currently on hiatus, waiting for season 3s, which will hopefully soon arrive on HBO Max sometime in 2021. In the meantime, you can also check Nick and I out currently on the Phantom Zone podcast, where he and I are going through The Boys Season 2 on the Phantom Zone podcast, and we just finished up our 3rd episode of that, and having a lot of fun, and we get some nice feedback from a certain David K. Proctor as well, so which is always fun. So I hope everybody checks us out there as well. All right. Holly, thank you so much for joining us. We love having you back. I hope you had a good time.
I sure did.
Things were a little chaotic today. We weren't sure if we're gonna pull this off, but I think we did. And and I think we all feel better, right? After talking to Doctor Who.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Yes, it did.
See the healing power of Doctor Who.
It is. It is very healing. Yes, Holly. Yeah, thank you so much. And Charles, I'm going to take the steering wheel just for a minute and pull us off. One of the things that is a consistent theme here as we do Next Stop Everywhere is the James Bond connection with so many actors. And with us losing Sean Connery this week, I know you tweeted very eloquently about it, but I just wanted to take a moment to share, just to kind of mention that because of the James Bond and Doctor Who connection, and he is an icon of our youth. There was, James Bond when it was on, whether the movie theater or you'd go watch it on TV, and all the other films he did. He is just truly somebody that is amazing, and he will live forever in cinema, but he will be missed.
Yes, he will. Unfortunately, he never appeared on Doctor Who, but
That would have been.
but a couple of his James Bond co-stars did.
Yes.
Notably, Honor Blackman, who was Pussy Galore in Goldfinger with Sean Connery. She was in Terror of the Vervoids from the Colin Baker era. We recently lost her, and we also recently lost Dame Diana Rigg, who was in... she played Tracy Vincenzo Bond in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Then we had her in that Matt Smith era story, The Crimson Horror.
Yes.
That she was in that one. And so yeah, kind of not directly a Sean Connery connection, but enough of a James Bond connection there with Doctor Who. So
yeah.
But it's kind of interesting that we kind of lost all three of them in a fairly recent period.
Yeah, it is. 2020 has just been a rough year of losing so many people. But thank you, Charles. Because we always bring up James Bond in almost every episode,
Right.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank you, buddy. And
and obviously I'm a major James Bond fan.
I know you are.
I know I talk about it all the time, but yeah, it was obviously a big deal for me because obviously Sean Connery, it's pretty safe to say that he's kind of the definitive James Bond for a lot of people. You know, he's the one who originated the role in what has become an incredibly long-lasting film franchise with Dr. No back in 1962. So it's a very tragic loss. Obviously, you know, if like a Indiana Jones, I'm a big fan of that, or Highlander, or you know, any of the other great films that he's been in over the years. So
absolutely.
All right. So on a more upbeat note, as I try to awkwardly transition out of the death of Sean Connery, thanks for bringing us down, Jesse. We were doing so good. But next time on Next Stop Everywhere, it's episode 208, so we got to talk the Eighth Doctor, right? So now the question is, what story are we going to talk about? Well, Jesse and I talked about this, you know, previously, and next week for Next Stop Everywhere, we're going to be talking Storm Warning, which I'm holding in my hot little hands right there. The very first Eighth Doctor audio adventure that Paul McGann did for Big Finish Productions way back in 2001.
Wow.
Where the Eighth Doctor officially continued, because remember, there was no show during the wilderness years between, 96 and the TV movie and 2005. So as far as Doctor Who fans were concerned, this was the official continuation of Doctor Who canon. And we have Paul McGann officially becoming, once and for all, the Eighth Doctor. And thankfully, his relationship with Big Finish has been so good that it's continued all the way even through 2020 and beyond. So, Jesse, I thought this would be a great one for you to listen to, because not only do we get Paul McGann making his audio debut as the Eighth Doctor, we also get the debut of India Fisher as his first official companion, Charlie Pollard.
Oh, nice.
So we talked about Charlie a little bit when we talked The Chimes of Midnight not too long ago, if you guys remember that. So now Jesse can find out how their tale began. Another origin story.
Yay, I'm excited.
So as we go back to 1930 with His Majesty's airship, the R-101.
Ooh, I love it already.
Yeah, so definitely recommend that. So everybody, I hope you guys, if you don't own that one already, go to bigfinish.com, download that sucker, because it's a great story.
It is.
Holly's nodding her head in agreement on that one. All right, so Holly, thanks again for joining us. Hope you had fun.
We love it, Holly. Thank you so much.
We always love having you here.
Thanks for having me again, guys.
No, you're always welcome. And Jesse, thank you as always.
Thank you, Charles.
Glad Doctor Who got to pick your spirits up.
Not only Doctor Who, but you, my friend. It was definitely I needed a shot of Charles' love, and I appreciate it a lot, buddy. So you go enjoy the rest of your night. Holly, you're always welcome. You make me smile. And, we tell you this every week when we record, but it really does make us smile that every week you're there with feedback, and
Definitely.
I appreciate it so much.
You're very welcome.
We really appreciate you taking time out of your week every week for us, because we love hearing from you. And it's great to read your emails on the show.
Yeah, I love it. You guys I consider extended family.
Aww.
Time I get to spend with my Whovian family. So
Thank you.
I'm getting a little teared up, guys.
I'm verklempt.
A little verklempt? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So on that nice, lovely little note, everybody, thanks again for listening. Hope to see you back next week for episode 208 as we discuss Storm Warning, Paul McGann, and India Fisher, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see you next time right here on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.